This is If My People Bible reading. We are at part 78, and we are finishing up the Numbers, and we'll start in Deuteronomy in this 15 minutes. Uh, chapter 33. Chapter 33 reads, Here are the stages in the journey of the Israelites when they came out of Egypt by divisions under the leadership of Moses and Aaron. Aaron was still alive. He was getting pretty old here, um, as was Moses. Um, and at Yahweh's command, Moses recorded the stages in their journey. This is the journey by stages. And we've shown you this before on video um, with picture of the stages that they stayed at, uh, crossing over, leaving Ramesses, and crossing over the desert of Sinai all the way to the Gulf of Aqaba, Red Sea. There's two Red Seas, one that goes left, one that goes right. They took the eastern one and they crossed over. That's the one that has the water that parted. That's the one that they crossed over, uh, and um, and it's left to the imagination on all these places they camped out. We know pretty well where Sukkot is, and a few others, uh, where the desert of sin, and they camped at Dofka and so forth. People can argue back and forth on that, and that's not the issue of this apologetic study of the word. They camped in approximately 40 some odd places, 40, 42, 44. And having said that, um, the study on its own, I mentioned that before, if you take a look at the names of the number of these places they stayed in and what happened while they were there, it kind of is like eerie because you're thinking, wow, Yahweh is so far advanced than his ways are not our ways. He's so far advanced. He knows exactly what they're thinking, what they're going to do, and even when he knows they're not going to do the right thing, he somehow makes it work out, even if they have their own way, because that's one thing Yahweh did. He created souls in human bodies, and they had choice. And so when we get into the second reading of the law called Deuteronomy, second reading, what it means, second law, some people say that. Yahweh goes through it again. He says, you have only two choices. You have obedience and love. You have disobedience and curses, which leads to death, eventually or immediately. Which one do you want? Okay, so they we'll go to verse 51 in chapter 33. On the plains of Moab by the Jordan across from Jericho, Yahweh said to Moses, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, when you cross the Jordan into Canaan, drive out, here's the key word, all the inhabitants, destroy all their carved images and cast idols, and demolish all their high places." He left zero tolerance. Now, okay, save you time. Um, he wants them to do that. And if you don't do that, he tells you, I'll do to you what I was going to do to your enemies. So if you stay with me, I'll take care of your enemies. You don't stay with me, then I'll take care of you. You are the family of Yahweh. So family takes care of their own first. That's exactly what he's teaching you here. Chapter 34, same thing again. We go through. Moses knows his time is coming up, so he starts putting out more Torah commands, more laws, more ordinances, more things to do, hear, and say, and follow, all along the line of talking to Yahweh the whole time. And even on the plains of Moab by the Jordan across from Jericho, Yahweh said to Moses, "Command the Israelites to give the Levites towns to live in as inheritance. The Israelites will possess and give them pasture lands around the town." So the promise made by Yahweh to Levites is going to continue. Only they are going to be priests for him only, and they're going to be servants for him, and that's what they do. as a result, the other 12 tribes, and all grafted in, even today, and even in the millennium, especially the millennium, will do this for Israel and for the Levites who take care of that. They don't have to, and they don't get a specific land that they own, but they get this land given to them freely. So Moses is now completing his work, and it kind of leaves you there where Joshua's taken over. He's been the leader for the military leader and so forth. He's now in charge of Judah and so forth in certain parts, and he's been given instructions to clear the land out completely. And whether he knows it or not, Yahweh knows these people are not going to do it. And as a result, exactly what Yahweh said is exactly what happened. And this is a lesson for all of us today. This lesson, this lesson is that you are not to marry to someone not in the same understanding of your faith walk. You're not. And if you do, you're going to pay the price. We've had friends who have adopted children, and they intentionally hire someone to help them find children from all over the world, and they pay enormous prices, ransom, whatever you want to call it, from people from other countries who simply are they're just birthing. They're just women birthing with no fathers whatsoever. These children have a pathetic life to lead, and these wonderful parents take over and adopt these children. And they have problems sometimes through life with, they've got genetic defects, all kinds of problems, and physical and mental and health issues, and plus then they have to put up with the fact that other children, hey, your mom is not the same color you are and all this, and a child has to put up with that. So the parent who thinks they're doing the right thing all the time is simply giving their child hell on earth sometimes that they have to put up with. But is it a noble thing to do? Is it something that Yeshua would certainly want everyone to love everyone and be obedient? It's a wonderful thing. So, life is just not a bowl of cherries like you're told. These name it and claim it preachers are scary people because they're just sending people straight down the path to hell. That's what they're doing. And until that ends one day, and I don't think it's going to end until Yeshua returns, and these people are going to be removed from leadership positions. And us little people here that spend enormous hours trying to reach other shepherds to support them and say, hey, you're not alone. I know you're sitting there at home, and I've got no congregation anymore, and I don't have all these social outlets and all this, and now we're living in the COVID, and it's never going to end, and everything I said is probably true. Everything you said, probably true. A shepherd doesn't gather in churches every Sunday. A shepherd who really reads the word won't go into churches on a Sunday, because if they know not to do it, they know not to lead it, and they know that if they're there, they're going to be asked to leave. Sheep like to gather, and they don't care about one another. They just like to gather, and the churches are full of people like that. And but when that's fine, and they're happy, and you know what I'm saying? Wonderful, wonderful. You've got the helmet of salvation. And that's great. Your feet are not shod. Your clothing, you're naked out from everywhere else. You don't have the sword of truth because you don't read the word, all of it, every day. And you will have your problems in life, and you are certainly deserve them because you brought them on yourself. We're telling you that we're just not making it pancakey for you. It's just if you want to really get into the word, you've got to get into it. And when you do, your pastor's going to see it. They're going to see that you're going to scare them. And they're going to attack. And if they don't do it themselves, and most of them, by the way, don't, they send someone else along, a deacon or somebody else who has the grunt work to get rid of you. And that's what they do, and that's how we all ended up like this. Then you're angry for a while. Then you got to go over the anger bit. You got to get over the anger bit. You've been ripped off, lied to, and cheated. And Lord knows, Adonai knows how much money you've given to an organization that, what they do with it. I used to follow the money on it for years, and if you give $1,000, I remember one year it was like $12,000. We traced that money, and now the $12,000, they were pretty good about it. That organization used it for what purpose they wanted, but what we wanted it for was for like missions and other things, not furnishings for the church and paying electric bills and all this other stuff. It went to the parent organization, which is what I call them institutional churches. Institutional churches are like Church of God, United Methodist, the key words like that. Well, they all belong in one big pile of groups, Baptist organizations, Southern Baptist and First Baptist, Second Baptist, all those in a certain group. I mean, they don't associate with others. They all share their money together, and they tithe to each other. So a local church will tithe to the United organization that controls that organization. Understand how that goes to a chief church. So out of $12,000 you give to somebody to help for missions, ends up 1,200. Yes, it does. And then it ends up later on when you go on these missions with them, you find the ministers walking into Jerusalem, and the shops and so forth, and you're pulling with buses and buses of people who just love Jesus and all this kind of stuff, and they're wanting to do the right thing, and you're taking around this mamby-pamby tour of false locations throughout Jerusalem. It's just one big false, 90% of it is not true. Then they go in the shops, and all these people from the buses buy all kinds of products. Then they all get loaded on the bus, and the preacher, this happens a lot, goes back into the businesses, and he gets a chunk of the money from the owner for bringing them into his shop. And if he comes back again, he's going to remember that. The shop owner says, "Thank you very much," and he gives the money, and it's sliding under the hand. It's called the ministerial handshake, if you know what I'm talking about. He gives him the ministerial handshake, and he takes money from the shop owner, and he pockets it for bringing in his his church members into these shops throughout Jerusalem. That's the way it's done. And by the way, Yahweh, in the last part of the word in the Bible that you're reading, what's the last thing he calls Jerusalem? He doesn't call it Jerusalem. He calls it Sodom and Egypt. Western ways. Sodom and Egypt is the name of Jerusalem today. It is not Jerusalem. It's not Jerusalem or any of this other stuff. It's Sodom and Egypt. And there's the reason I gave you right there. This lying and cheating and stealing, shame on these people. And they do it. And I've been following them like for 30, 35 years. This is what they do. And they laugh about it. Because I hear them laughing about it when I'm at the Ministerial Alliance. Can you believe this? And I'm telling you, have you seen anything like this? Anyone talking to you like this on YouTube? About the very people who are supposed to be pious and holy, kadosh, and let's get into Deuteronomy, second book. I've got some time here. It's restating of the law again. It's love and obedience, disobedience and curses. That's what Deuteronomy is about. Repetition, interpretation of the Ten Commandments, religious, national regulations, God's past dealings, Yahweh's past dealings are insurance of the future. Yahweh knew Israel. Past wasn't good. Yahweh sent Israel to Egypt. Yahweh brought them out. Yahweh brought them to promised land, but it's not like Egypt. You got to do different things in the land. You got to hear and obey, and you got to follow the appointed times. And there's only one temple. There's only one place to pray in Jerusalem that he set up, that he consecrated, that he brought his Ruach down in the Shekinah glory into the Holy of Holies when Solomon's temple was completed. It was all going to be a certain way, but it all fell apart. You remember in the last 40 years, they went to 44 places. Here, it's one. So it's about the priests, the prophets, the laws, about regulation of murder and warfare and delinquent sons and good people, bad people, flesh, the devil, divorce, punishment, first fruits, Thanksgiving. That's what's in Deuteronomy. It's a second reading. It's more detailed. It's the most detailed that you're going to get of the 5 books of the Old Covenant. And wait till we get to the New Covenant Torah. 1,050 understandable laws.